All right, everyone, let's do this. How are you? Welcome to this week's episode of our podcast. It's called Is Breakfast Included? Thanks for stopping by. On the show this week, I talk with my good friend, Jim Runge. Jim's been in the live music industry for over 35 years, most of them as a tour manager. He's tour managed bands like Wilco, the Eels, Lucinda Williams, the Black Keys. He's currently out with I Prevail. He took time out of his day, man, to talk about his incredible career. He told a really cool story about receiving a letter from a young guy you may have heard of, Dave Grohl, buying his CD or his cassette, and wanting to interview his band just last week. He also talked about his current touring situation, dealing with Parkinson's, and he was very, very honest about it all. Let's check it out. Tell everyone who you are.
I am Jim Runge. I'm a tour manager, been tour managing for 35 years, I think now.
Oh,
yeah.
Only 35 years. What did you do before tour managing?
Worked at a print shop, hung out, did little things with music, was in a band when I was younger. Was in the punk scene in Green Bay, Wisconsin, started a scene that's still pretty vital. Was involved in that and just always kind of stayed involved in music. And when I got involved in production, doing lighting, and that kind of led to tour managing.
And where you grew up in the Green Bay area, I take it.
Yeah, and I'm back here now too. Yeah.
Right. So you were in I remember seeing something back a few years ago. You posted a letter from your band that Dave Grohl had written to the band.
Yeah, he actually interviewed us. He was 14. I was like 17, I think. And he circled all the coins because the tape was $1. We sold them for $1. I think we got 3 for 33 cents, or three for $1, and I sold them for $1 a piece. And so I sent it to him, and he sent $1 in coins and circled all the coins in the envelope. And then said that he had taken the money from his parents' cigarette money or something. And then, he interviewed us. Unfortunately, I did the interview. I don't know if the interview ever got published or not. Dave doesn't remember, but we sent it out. But somehow I always kept that letter, even though, Dave, that was before Dave was even in Scream. So that was, he was just a kid in the DC suburbs at that point. And somehow I kept the letter that I kept all the letters, not just his, but somehow it stayed in my possession all these years, and I still got it. He says he was a fan and asked us when we're coming to DC and all that he heard great things about our band. So yeah, it's pretty funny to still have that.
Yeah. And what was your band called, man?
No Response. We're actually doing in November, first week in November, we're doing our first reunion show, all of us together, all the 4 original members together for the first time since 1985. So we're going to try to do it again. They're doing a documentary on the scene that's been kind of going for 15 years and it's finally coming out. So we're reforming for that. So
this is your first time getting back together with
them? They got together. They did a reunion 15 years ago to raise money for this documentary and film the live part of this documentary. But we were having my son who's 15 now. We were having him and we didn't want to travel because my girlfriend at the time was in the first trimester. So we were both older, so we didn't want to travel. So I had to kind of bow out of that one. So the band has gotten together and done some stuff, but not with me singing. So this is the first time since then that actually it'll be me and the 3 original big guys playing together. So
you guys looking forward to it?
Yeah, and a little apprehensive. I've been working on the other side of it, so it's like, I'm not. I used to, dive off stages and all that stuff. Now I can barely walk, so we'll see how that goes.
Right on. You had this band. Did you have anything else before you started in this side of the business?
Not really. That was the only band I was. I mean, I tried a couple other bands. We did a couple rehearsals. That was it. That was my like really my only band. And then I just went. I lived life. I had my son, who's Zach, who is actually Avril Lavigne's stage manager now. I had him when I was 20, so I was just kind of being a father. And then I got the opportunity to. I was going to move to San Francisco, and I was tending bar in Minneapolis, and got the offer to work for a lighting company there, that this guy named Pat Whalen, who now lives in LA and who's Devo's tour manager, and he owned this company, and he hired me up, and I decided to get into production, and the rest is history. So
Yeah, man. I always, when, as you know, you go through towns and guys were always like, hey, how do I get in? Can this is
yeah,
what I can do. And I've told people close to me, like, man, once you decide to do that, that's what you do. Like,
yeah. I
it,
usually
it
tell them to go to school and do something else.
I always say, like, you can't have a band, you can't have a personal life. You can't, and
Yeah,
if you find somebody that you can't have a personal life, like, that's really rare.
yeah. You gotta have somebody really patient that doesn't mind you being away and has a life of their own, because it rarely ends well. So yeah, it's a hard life
It
for sure.
is. It is. And I
I mean,
always refer to
there's a lot
that.
of great things about it for sure. As a kid growing up, and as too, kid growing up in music, and meeting your idols, and being part of that world, and being on the inside of that world, and is like so cool. And dude, but I've said in interviews before, like, it's 75% pure boredom, 20% mind blowing stress, and 5% things you'd
Yeah.
kill to do. So it's like you live that boredom and that stress, but the it's that like 5% that you get, where you get to meet, like, or you're part of a situation that people would kill to be in. And you kick yourself, as like you're that 12-year-old kid who was like listening to Black Flag, and now you're meeting Henry Rollins, like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy, man. Like, I probably, like yourself, I was in a band, but I never thought I'd end up doing half of the things, not even a
yeah.
fraction of the things I've done. And like you said, a lot of it's, uh boredom. You're on a bus, on a plane, in a hotel room, in a venue. You don't get to see the cities you're in.
Or
Uh,
don't get to see you don't even get to live, not alone in the city, but the sun. you
yeah.
know
Yeah, a
how many
lot of
days have you
yeah, I
how
have
many
friends
days have you
ask.
gone in where the bus pulls into the venue, and you walk off the bus, you're in the bowels of the venue, of the arena. You go to your office, there's no windows. You get on the bus at night at 3 in the morning, you get on the bus. It's dark outside, so you go like 2-3 days without even any sun at all.
Yeah. And you wake up the next morning in another venue.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, I know. It happens 2-3 days in a row, where like you don't ever see the sun. You wake up in a cave,
Yeah.
for 3 days in a row, and you don't get to see the sun.
And I get cats asking me, like, well, you have days off too, but me personally, I like to spend my days off in the just preparing for those next three
Yeah,
in
I
a
mean,
row.
I as a tour manager, you don't really get days off, but I've thanks to people I've worked with, like Wendy Wilson and Adrian Biondo, who, when we were out together, would force me to get out for a couple of hours and do it. So I kind of tried to, like, get out and get away from the desk, even for an hour or two, to walk around, or even if it's like going down to the hotel bar and having a drink and eating some food and sitting down for a little bit, and
Yeah.
then going back to work, at least as like getting out of your room, and for a couple hours, and like be around normal people for a few hours.
Yeah. What was your first tour managing gig once getting into breaking in?
My first tour as a tour manager and as a lighting guy was a guy. I don't know if you're familiar with Jimmy Dale Gilmore from Austin.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was my first gig. Austin. I started in the Austin scene, so Dale Watson, Jimmy Dale Gilmore, the Flatlanders, Joey Lee. Those are all part of the crew that I kind of started out with. But yeah, Jimmy, I was his, like Mike Crowley, who was his manager at the time, hired me. I was doing sales for this lighting company, and I had sent a text just saying, I know you don't have the artists that can afford big production, but if you need even something to take with you, we're available. And he called me on that, and that's how I started. He called, and we did 8 Parkans with color changers on the old color changers where you tape the gel together, and they scrolled out, and they always fell apart, and you had to retape them up. Did 8 of those, and I did an Eric Frankhauser, who's now Wilco's tour manager, was the tour manager on that. And when he left to go do the Eels, asked me if I was interested in doing in taking over tour management stuff. And then Eric retired to run the Zach Theater in Austin for a few years. And while he did that, I took over his gigs. And then when he just, well, after about 10 years, he decided to come back to touring. And then he took over Lucinda Williams for me and Wilco for me and a few other acts. So we've kind of been trading each other out for like last 30 some years.
Yeah. I got my start on the second generation of that whole Austin thing. Pat Green, Jack Ingram, those guys.
Yeah.
So that's who I got my start with.
When I was doing Jimmy, Jack had just released his first issue because Jack did Dallas on that song Dallas, which is a Jimmy Dale Gilmore song, and the Flatlanders song. Jack had done that in that record that was produced by Steve Earle.
Yeah.
And so Jack was around a lot in those days. And then the guys at 888 are my good friends, the management company who used to manage Jack.
Yeah.
Recently, George Curry.
I think a friend of mine, name escapes me, as part of the Whiskey Myers management team now. They also did Eli Young Band and
Eli Young. I did Chase Rice for them actually a few years ago. Who was a Survivor alumni and who became a country singer. I did that for them. And the Whiskey Meyer guys I got to know pretty well. They were around quite a bit, but yeah, George was around. In fact, George Curry was the assistant for Tim, the guy that owned La Zona Rosa at the time.
Yeah.
In those days, so that's how I got to meet him through Alejandro Escovedo, who's one of my oldest friends. Like, I managed Alejandro for a while. He was the opening act with Jimmy Dale Gilmore when we were on them. The old 97s, Dale Watson, Scud Mountain Boys were all the opening acts. So I got in with that whole alt country world, and then did Lucinda Williams through there, Wilco, Sunvolt. Yeah, was in that world for quite a number of years.
Yeah. So one of my really good friends, Daniel Herbst, he was Wilco.
Oh, I know Daniel very, 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 very well. Yeah.
Daniel took over tour managing Josh Ritter when I was Josh's guitar tech. And
okay.
He and I became very close. We still talk regularly.
Yeah. It's been a few years, but I went to dinner with him and Melanie, his wife, a few times when I've been in New Orleans. Daniel and I, it's been a few years, but I've known Daniel. I think I took over. He did Lucinda. I think there was a couple people in between Lucinda and I, but I took over Lucinda for him. And I haven't talked to him in a year or so, but we used to talk quite often.
Yeah.
I love Daniel.
So I'm sure it's crazy. I'm sure you and I have crossed paths at some point.
I'm sure we have,
with all of that, because everyone trades out in those crews. But yeah, like I got my start with that whole second with Jack Ingram and Pat Green.
You were more in that Texas country. Jimmy was more that hippie country stuff, and that the Kerrville or they're all from Lubbock too. But then you were involved in that Texas country. There's so many different genres.
Red dirt. Yeah.
But Jack and those guys were like, that and I was when Seymour Stein was like coming in and doing all that stuff, like that was the hot music back then in like the late 90s. That was like all the labels were down there. All the labels were down there.
just scooping these
So
artists up.
scooping people up, and then it died pretty quickly. But a lot like Wilco and Sunvolt and a lot of those bands are still around. Have still like lived through it. Lucinda Williams.
Yeah.
A lot of those bands are still there.
Yeah. You could
And
tell which ones had which ones were the flash. And I mean, like, uh, Jack has reinvented himself as a songwriter. And like he's writing
exactly.
songs for all these
Yeah.
artists, and he's still I'll still get the occasional sarcastic text from Jack. Yeah. He had a nickname for me that never stuck. A lot of these guys, a lot of these Texas guys, Jack gave them their nicknames, and that's what
Nice.
they're known by. And he gave me a nickname, and I'm like, nope, it's not gonna stick.
Yeah, the Eels did that too. The Eels always everybody got a nickname, and Eric Frankhauser was the Colonel. So when I came on board just to piss Eric off, they made me the General just so I overranked him. And so a lot of that camp Eric still calls himself the Colonel, and a lot of people from that camp call him the Colonel and call us Colonel and the General yet. So after 20 some years, we still have those names in some places. So
Yeah. So after that era of being in the Austin scene, what was the next gig you had? Like,
I kind of stayed within that world for long. I was doing Lucinda Williams, and that's about the time that I had my second son, and I wanted to kind of take it easy, so I hired Eric to do Lucinda Williams, and was kind of we were doing it to her together, and that's when I got the Black Keys, and that's when things kind of blew up again. When I was working with them, that was almost a 10-year run with them, and that's when kind of things took off for me.
you said something earlier. Your son was a stage manager?
Yes, he's generally a drum tech and bass tech, and he was with me on the Black Keys. He was Pat's drum tech, but now he was on J Dot on the Imagine Dragons with Group Love, I think, and he J Dot kind of showed him how to stage manage, and he really likes that. Now he's doing I think they're like a 10 truck tour. He's stage managing it. His first tour as a full on just stage manager without wearing several different hats. So
Yeah. What's that like, man? Having your kid come up and then just kind of doing the same thing you do, like.
it's weird because he's always done it. I mean, been doing it. He graduated at 2 weeks out of high school. I had a friend I was doing a band on Warped Tour, and he was overwhelmed by it, so he needed some help. And I called Zach up. He was, like I said, he was out of high school for 2 weeks, and I said, "Now's your chance." They need a driver, and then they got out there and found out that he couldn't drive because you had to be 23 to drive. So he just stayed out there and did merch and learned how to do drums. And from that, he went with me to Lucinda Williams. From there, he did a few other stuff with me, and then he went with Lucinda Williams, and he was doing merch. And Butch, the drummer who I hired, who was also in the Eels, needed somebody to kind of help with his drums. And I said, well, Zach can do merch, count merch in, and do your drums, but you got to train him, you got to teach him. And Butch is a great drummer, and Butch took him under his wings, and he did that until recently. He's mainly been doing drums, but now like I said, now he's getting into the stage management thing, and his first one that's a pretty big tour.
Yeah.
We were doing the same dates on I Prevail that he's doing on Avril Lavigne. So
the venues, what he's.
yeah, these big amphitheaters. All the amphitheaters we do this time of year, PNC and all those.
And so, as knowing that you've been through this industry for so many years, and then he comes in, how hard was it for you to be like, hey, don't do this and don't do this? Or did you say?
I never really had to discipline him. I mean, I always was clear with him and said, you're my son, but I treat you like anybody else. And he's got a different last name than I do. So a lot of people wouldn't know it unless he tells them. They wouldn't know it. It's usually a surprise. People will be working together for week or two, and they'll go, I had no idea that was your kid. But I've never played favorites, but he's always, I've never had a reason to like yell at him or
Yeah.
let him know. He knows he's gotten frustrated. He'll call me frustrated and upset about stuff, but he's well liked, and he does a great job. Like I said, I don't remember a situation where I ever had to discipline him or
Yeah.
yell at him or do things. He always holds his own out there. So
Yeah.
certainly there's no nepotism there. He's his own man for sure. I've given him opportunities, but he's always excelled at that. So
Yeah. I mean, you give the opportunities, or you open the door, and it's really up to them to keep it.
yeah,
They either like
exactly.
you or they don't like you in this business.
Exactly.
You know, I know a lot of great techs that are home most of the year.
Yeah, yeah. No, his personality is a big part of
Yeah.
this job. It's how you click with somebody makes a big difference. So like you're married to them for more than you see your spouses a lot of time, and living in much tighter circumstances too. You're all living on a bus together, and there's not a lot of privacy there. Especially if you're traveling with the artist, or the band. You gotta have a special personality to know what to say and what not to say, and be
Yeah.
cool about that, because it would doesn't take long to saying the wrong thing that you're taking a plane ticket home.
Yeah. Or in some cases, the bus,
Yeah.
Greyhound bus. Man, some of my best friends in this industry, like I said, I came up in with not going to say smaller acts, but regional acts, and I've always remained very tight, or from the get go, got along with the tour manager, and I've always sympathized with him because in my eyes, you could disagree with me if not, being a tour manager of a band is quite possibly the most thankless job on the tour. uh Number one, you're doing all the work, like you said earlier. You don't really have a day off. You're fixing the problems. You're doing the quote unquote babysitting. Do you tend to agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's job is. I mean, there's certainly like. I mean, I think the lighting guys have it rough because they're the first in and first out, and they never get any rest. They're on it 24 hours a day. And I started as a lighting guy, so I know what that job prevailed. But at the same time, when you walk away from it, you walk away from it at night. I got into tour managing. I was super shy when I started tour managing. I had to. My friends and my wife at the time used to like make fun of me because I would develop a different personality when I was in tour. They would go like, "Oh, Jim's in tour manager mode. He's confident. He's talking loud. His head's up high, and then I'd be like, 10 minutes later I'd be in the corner like trouble being a wallflower. So I had to kind of redevelop that personality. But one of the reasons I didn't want to go tour is I like being like part of the action. I like being part of the like. I liked I don't necessarily like doing promo, but I like doing the buzz of like with the Black Keys, like being a part of the making decisions of where you go and what you do, and how to make events great, and how to you know logistics and all that stuff is exciting to me.
You
But
like
I
being
think
in that conversation?
yeah, and just being part of that, making those decisions and with the band, and is fun to me. It's a lot of stress, but there's a lot of excitement too. Like being there's again, it's those like 5% moments where like you get to walking hand in hand with Ricky Lee Jones in Paris and Amsterdam, like her telling where she used to live, and being on the Grammys, and being a part of that, and being part of those moments, like where 12-year-old you would freak out that you have the opportunity to do these things.
Yeah. Yeah. I always refer to those times in my career as, uh, I had the opportunity. The first time I had the opportunity to work for one of my heroes, which was Aerosmith, I was like, the posters on the wall came alive,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and it was a big deal to me at the time, and I was like, if it ended now, I'm perfectly
Yeah.
okay if it ended now. And so I totally get it. And then the rest of the time, it's all like head down, do your job.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember when John Doe was the opening act for Lucinda Williams and meeting getting high with Willie Nelson, like just little thing when I was sober at the time, but it's like I had this debate in my head, like if Willie offers to get me high, do you get high? And I don't think I inhaled, but I took that joint from Willie and I pretended I certainly like was there and present for it. That's for sure.
I totally would. I mean, and we when I was with Pat, we were the support for Willie a lot,
Nice.
and that was
And that was my first tour as a tour manager was with David Anderson was yeah, he took me under his wing and trained me how to do my first settlements. That was when they were still carrying guns and there's still guns on tables and piles of money, piles of cash. It was a different time. I was like coming in at the end of that.
yeah,
So I was lucky to that and Phil Kaufman from the who burned Graham Parsons' body in Joshua Tree.
yeah,
Like he was tour manager. My second I did a week with Willie Nelson with Jimmy opening, and then we went to open where Iris Dement was the opener, and then Emmylou Harris was the headliner. It was a package of three, and then I got to tour with Emmylou with Phil Kaufman being tour manager. I felt bad because Emmylou was one of my idols, but I remember sitting in dressing rooms and there'd be like all these roadies and stagehands sitting around Phil Kaufman, but Emmy was sitting in the corner by herself, nobody paying any attention to her.
everyone wanting to hear the story.
Everyone wanted to hear Phil Kaufman's stories,
Yeah. A few years ago, right around 2020, you had a stroke, correct?
Yeah.
How did that? I mean, stupid question. How did that affect you? But did you think you were going to be touring after that?
To be honest with you, no, I didn't. I mean, I came back almost 100. It happened because of COVID. They suspect that because COVID thickens your blood. And when I went in, what happened was I was in our pantry and I went to reach something. I felt something like pop. And I thought it was a back issue, and then I felt weird all day. And then that night I had to take my wife Stacy to a friend's, and I was dropping her off, and I was like I kept like veering off to the left, running off the road, and it was weird. And I never had any issues like that before. And then they came home and I fell twice. I fell in the bathtub. I busted a table, and I was like, something's not right. So the next day we went to the hospital and they just whisked us into the emergency room and said it was a stroke, but they took x-rays, and the x-rays, they did the upper part of my chest, and they said, are you sick? Do you have COVID? And I said, it was like November and it was like warm out. So it was like unseasonably warm. And I thought I just had allergies, which I tend to get that time of the year. And they go, well, we think based on your lungs, you might have COVID, and this was early on when they were still like you went to ICU if you were, isolated. So they put me in ICU they said it would take like 5 to 7 days to get it to for sure if I have it.
Uh-huh.
And then they found out that I did have it eventually after like 9 days. I think I was in hospital for like 10 or 11 days, and everything to call a nurse, like they had to put on hazmat suits, and it was the whole thing. Like it was like I was isolated for that period, but I came out of that. That was my left side, and I pretty much did therapy in my room that whole time. And by the time I left, I went to a couple weeks of therapy, but I was pretty much fine for that period. Then I went out on the road and I noticed that my hands started tremoring, and my walking. I thought my walking had gotten better, but I obviously hadn't, because we were in COVID and we kind of locked down. I wasn't doing a lot of walking. I mean, I knew it was still like working on it, but it was better, and I felt like I was back to 100%. And then all of a sudden, 3 years ago, I went. I knew something wasn't right. Then I was out with Demi Lovato, and we were going to South America, and I would sit on my computer screen and just stare at it for hours. Of like my stress levels were, and I wasn't. I mean, there was nothing stressful about that. More about the tour. It sure was a hardcore pop tour, and there's always little things that are different with pop versus rock and EDM, but it's still like had a great team and it had a supportive team. And I decided I just had to bail out. I covered myself on the tour and flew home, and that's when I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So double whammy.
Oh, and how once you found that out, how long did that keep you from how long were you out of touring at that point?
I kind of, I mean, I honestly at the time I didn't feel like I was going to tour anymore. I had done, I'd come on with Demi. I came home. It was the doctors, they gave me dopamine in medicine to they said I should be better for 5 years, that it should go away and then I'd be in a wheelchair after 5 years. Well, I took the medicine. So I was like 6 times a day. It made me nauseous. I just taking like 6 pills, like four to 5 times a day or something like that. It was just like, and it was making me nauseous every time I took it. So I had to make sure that I ate or did something every day, and then I'd still get sick. And then I just financially was getting tough, and I couldn't. Obviously, there's not tour managing at home doesn't really exist. So I Bobby Schneider called me, and I went on just helping him out last year on LL Cool J, and that went well. I definitely wasn't. Things have changed for sure. I'm not what I used to be, and I can't really do what I used to be. But I just finished this tour doing it, and I got through it. It was rough. I had good people helping me, and I hopefully have some stuff for next year. But I'm just kind of picking and choosing,
Yeah.
and I mean, eventually I'll go on disability because I really can't do a lot. I can't write or type with my right hand. So it's like there's a lot of stuff that I'm limited to right now. So we're just looking at options and seeing what the options. My family's been great at helping me out and being there for me. So,
Yeah.
and of course Stacy, my wife, is taking great care of me. So we're just doing what we can. So yeah.
Well, I know that I've followed you for quite some time. We've spoken on
Yep.
Messenger. This is the first time we're actually meeting.
Yeah,
Correct.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I know that you've been through it, man, but you've come out and it shows your drive, shows your work ethic, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you got to be someone. I mean, it's always tough to be positive. I mean, we've been doing this. I don't know. We've been doing a podcast, video thing.
I've been
Kind of.
watching.
We haven't done it in a while. We actually recorded one the other day with my drummer for my band talking about the thing, and I think we're gonna start activating that. We were hoping to do it while I was on the road, but it was just like too much going on, and I just couldn't take the time to like my brain couldn't separate one for the other, so it was hard to do. But we're gonna try to do some more of that, and I think I want to get more into like with the Parkinson's and what I'm doing, how that's going, and just being supportive of that, and just being open about what that journey is and what's going on with that.
Yeah. Are you planning on like using your platform as a touring tour manager to bring awareness to it and so forth?
I don't. In some ways, I think it's more about awareness in the sense of like this is what I'm going through,
Yeah.
and this is and what and kind of that I'm not. That's what we're kind of dealing with. I'm not sure exactly what, but I think I want to be honest about what it means to have Parkinson's, what it is to live with it, what it is to how you treat it. I mean, Parkinson's, like everybody seems to know somebody who's got Parkinson's, and everybody's got a solution to it, and I'm kind of waiting. Let's see what happens. I mean, right now it's not pleasant. My walking is stunted. It's I haven't fallen yet, but it's only a matter of time. I mean, I think Michael J. Fox said he breaks like broken like 13 bones or something. Like I think it's just the fact that you fall, and I almost fell last night for the first time. Um Down the stairs. Luckily I was on the second to last stair, so it didn't matter. I caught myself, but could have been nasty had I fallen
Yeah.
up further than that. And but I think it's just those things of living with it, and then trying to live my best life along with that too,
Yeah.
seeing how that goes, and just trying to be, and then just dealing with, my body's changes, and how to deal with that, and how I want to deal with that, and what I want, you know, what I'm open to suffering and open not to suffering. I mean, if you look at the list of of side effects from this disease is like, daunting, like not being able to swallow. And in fact, that was all the stuff that I had a couple of things where I couldn't swallow, and it was just a few seconds. But it's like when the doctor said I might have Parkinson's, like all this list of stuff was like, oh shit, yeah, I've been doing that. Yeah, that's been an issue. That's been
Yeah.
happening. I haven't had a whole lot of things, but it's like the walking and
Things
falling down.
started making more sense.
Yeah,
What
it could be an
happened.
issue, and then it's a neurological disease, so memory and stuff like that is not always. Stress level is affected by it, drooling, you name it. There's this long list of like weird stuff that you wouldn't think would be part of a disease, but is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, man, you seem to have a really good attitude about it. Um, some folks get that diagnosis and they're like, I'm done, you know. Um,
Yeah, no, I gotta be. I mean, I'm not like I'm not really wanting to like go to
there's
go
I
go
don't
through
I don't
the.
sense a sense of like poor me
Oh
from
no,
you at
definitely not
all.
that. I don't do. I've had a great life, and I'm blessed. I'm blessed with my family. I'm blessed with Stacy. I'm blessed with my kids. My friends. All people that have worked 30 plus years in industry, and I'm loved and well respected, and people like come out of the woodwork you know to talk to me, and all that, and help me out. Um, it's I'm certainly not like I've done more and lived more life than I ever thought I would. So I can't be down. And now I'm just this is where life's taken me. I just got to figure out where that goes from there.
Yeah, yeah,
It is what it is.
yeah. No, I agree with you, man. Like I said, you seem to have a really good attitude about it. I know back in 2020 when the world changed, or actually it was before that because I messaged you and I asked you a question. I was like, "Hey, we don't really know each other, but what advice would you give somebody who might want to go into being a tour manager?" Your first response is like, "Why?" But and then you said, "Well, man, if I can do it, anybody can do it." Uh, but
That's true.
there's a lot of cats in this industry, man. They're not very. When you ask them questions, they're not. Uh, uh, they're very guarded with their knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why. I mean, that's why we did TM 101.
Yeah,
we did that, which I'm very proud of. But I think that's always been part of my thing. I've always been open and honest with people as a mentor and as just a friend. I love the people in this industry. They've been great to me. I'm super blessed to have, have lived the life that I've lived for sure. And with the people I've done,
yeah,
I have so many amazing, great friends. It's amazing.
yeah. Because I tell folks we spend more time with the our road family when we do our real family. And so, when I call someone like, hey, that guy's like a brother to me, I really mean it because
Yeah.
You've spent, that amount of time with them. And
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly.
you're telling them that, like, man, dude, don't snore as much, try not to snore. I'm sleeping right across from you. But man, I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate you
Oh, this
talking
is fun.
about,
Thank you. This has been great.
I appreciate you talking about your Parkinson's. I know that's a very private matter, but thank you for
Well, I'm
talking.
not living it like that. I mean, like I said, I mean, I don't know necessarily think that I'm advocating, but I think I'm being realistic. And I think that's what I want to do with it is just be honest and realistic about like what it takes to do that. And, little things like flying on a plane to Australia, which I've never even thought about getting on a plane before. I just do it. Now it's like, I've literally been planning for months, like every little aspect of it, like where am I sit? I've changed my seat 5 times. Make sure I'm in the right spot to make sure that I don't get claustrophobic, to make sure gone to the doctor to get anti-anxiety medication in case I have a panic attack on the way there, all this stuff, which I never, I used to laugh at people when, especially a lot of musicians get anxiety when they, with fame seems to come anxiety. I know a lot of musicians who, as they become famous, don't fly anymore or hate flying because they get this anxiety. And now I get that. I mean, I'm not saying I'm famous or not, but I get the fact that that's something that you just took for granted and you've done all your life. It all of a sudden becomes this monster on your back, like that. Any flight over an hour and a half, 2 hours is like I got to prepare for now, and I got to really like psych myself up and
Yeah.
be ready for. So it's just just living life differently and not as Bobby Schneider once told me, it just got to come to terms with I am not the same person, and then be okay with that.
Yeah.
I've changed, and just give myself a break, and be honest with you that's who I now am.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on, man. Well, I'm proud of you, bro.
Thank you,
Um,
my friend.
yeah, yeah. I hope we cross paths soon, you
Absolutely.
know.
Absolutely.
But our podcast is called Is Breakfast Included?
Yeah.
And if we were having breakfast, what would you have?
Hash browns, eggs over medium, and if I'm feeling hungry, pancakes on the side.
Yeah, I'm a pancake guy. That's my answer every time someone asks me. Pancakes.
And then hash browns extra crispy
All right.
too. And bacon.
Waffle House hash browns?
Oh, Waffle House is like my jam. I it's my guilty pleasure.
I know, right?
Yeah, we were
Every
a
time I
couple
go
years,
home to Texas, I hit the Waffle House.
yeah, a couple years ago we were in Atlanta, and Stacy had never had Waffle House before, so we were going to the airport. I made sure to stop and eat at one before we flew home. Yeah.
What was her take on it?
Probably not what mine was, but I'm sure she's a vegetarian, so I'm sure she didn't like enjoy it as much as I did, but she humored me anyways.
Well, man, when is this band playing? When's your band playing?
First week in November, I think the second, third, it's happening. Yeah, and the documentary is showing that weekend too.
Yeah. Is it open to the public?
Yeah, I think they're selling tickets. I think it's like $13 or something like that to get in for it. They're doing 3 showings. It's a smaller theater. It's like 1,200 capacity theater, I think.
Right on, man.
So yeah.
Cool, man. Well, we're looking forward to that. Jim, thank you for talking to me, man. Thanks for
Thank
the
you. It's been
time.
my pleasure.
And man, like I said, I hope we cross paths soon.
Absolutely. I'll let you know if I'm out that way.
All right, man.
All right. Bye.
Right on. Jim Runge. What a great story, right? Like a really cool guy, man, just making it happen, not letting anything stop him. You can find out more about Jim. He's part of this group, Tour or TM101. You can find them on Facebook at Tour Management 101. Check it out. While you're online, check out isbreakfast.com. Subscribe to our YouTube page, rate and review the show on Apple Podcast, and stop by our store and, I don't know, pick up a shirt. It'd look great on you. I promise. You should see it on me. It's all I'm wearing. All right, guys, I am done. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next week.